Good morning. This is Mini Geology. Geology for everybody, especially today for geoscientists. I just came back from Washington, D.C., where I was part of a nice crew of geoscientists who visited the Congress in the so-called Congressional Visiting Day. This occurred technically September 13th in Washington, D.C. And this is a cooperative organizational effort of several geoscience organizations that they are anchored by a couple of them, especially the American Geosciences Institute and the Geological Society of America, as well as the American Geophysical Union. There are many others also, like the American Association of Petroleum Geologists. So a lot of associations about geoscientists that they come together, they decide to send a strong message to the Congress, they organize themselves, and then they go directly to the Congress, physically there. And you talk with your representative. So I was so lucky to have witnesses all of this preparation and action. So today we want to talk about this part of our beautiful discipline, how we convince the others, the great society in general, that what we do is essential, is important, and it is not just a luxury for who study this discipline. It's not just a beauty, it's not just a toy. So it's something else that is useful for the society. This cooperative effort is how we, the geoscientists, we amplify our voice. And I bring you off the bat to Washington, D.C., and telling you my story while I was traveling back to Houston. Here we go. You're going to listen now to something I recorded last night. This is Mini Geology. It is 2:30 in the morning, and we are in Washington, D.C. It is September 14th, in the middle of the night. And Mini Geology is now, here we go, in the elevator. And I want to stimulate your senses by leaving in background these rumors, noises, and sounds to let you know that I am in Washington, D.C. I came here for the Congressional Visiting Day, the Geoscience Congressional Visiting Day. And I'm leaving the apartment where I was hosted, an Airbnb apartment, which actually it was a shared room.
Service is at the pickup address. Thanks for using our service. Have a nice trip.
Okay, I have the taxi in here, 236. Here we go, coming out. We are at 24 and H, 24th Street and H. Here it is. This is the taxi cab. Good morning.
Daniel?
Yes, this is Daniel. Thank you.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing very fine, thank you. And we are going to Union Station.
Union Station. All right, sir.
Have you ever been in the Congress?
Yeah, we live in DC, so every day, especially I live on Capitol Hill.
You live in Capitol Hill?
Yeah. Even I met to Obama also.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It is 3 a.m. I am in the train station, Union Station, there's a line to go and catch the train. And just let me tell you that I visited 5 representative offices, and the visits were good. But good in the sense that it's good like you can think about rice. You can make a very good dishes with rice, a risotto, paella, gumbo. Well, in this case, it was like a plain rice. The meetings that were good, but nothing special. All in all, bottom line is that we went there to request to keep or rise the levels of funding for the non-military or non-defense budget, especially for the geosciences. And they were all welcome these requests. Nobody said no. Everybody said that they love science and they want to keep the budget as it is, which in other words means that all the senators, representatives that we met, they disagree with the requests of the president. The president requests to cut heavily, between up to 30%, the federal funding for the research and science in general. Well, we have to say that somebody explicitly, somebody silently, or in between lines, they disagree with the president. So this is what in here is said, bad news, good news. The bad news is that there won't be any increase. The good news is that there won't be any cuts. So they also say in the capital, now they say flat is up. It is 3:30 in the morning. I am on a train. I'm finally on Amtrak and going from Washington DC to Baltimore. And then I need to jump from the train to the airplane. I would like to tell you how did it happen. Well, at some point I was in contact with Casey White of the Geological Society of America, and she invited me to come and join the Geoscience Congressional Visiting Day. And they said, well, let me see how are things going here in Houston, because we had a Harvey on our heads when we first had the first touch base. And I was lucky enough, so I was dry, my house also, even though we were surrounded by water. And then I decided to leave, so I took a couple of days off, and I went to Washington DC. When I arrived there, I land in Baltimore and I catch the train. When I arrived to Union Station and came out, it was a beautiful day. It was sunny, there was a breeze, no humid, and the Capitol Hill was shining. It was a very nice scene when I came out of Union Station and I saw the cupola of the Capitol Hill, which have been said that is not really made by stone, by iron cast. Anyhow, it is now freshly painted. It looks like marble. Everything started that day with a day-long meeting. The meeting was introduced by one of the executive directors of the AGI, the American Geosciences Institute.
I'm Maeve Boland. I'm Director of Geoscience Policy at the American Geosciences Institute.
What are the hot topics now debating in the AGI?
Well, AGI, we do an immense number of things because we are a federation of 51 member societies, so we represent about 250,000 geoscientists. So we don't have individual members, we have societies that are members, like AGU, GSA, whatever. So we have a very wide range of topics that people are concerned about. On the policy side, the federal budget is definitely the most important topic at the moment.
So it's not
Funding
really
is
an international umbrella, it's mainly based in the United States, for United States.
Mainly based in the United States, but we have a lot of member societies that are truly international themselves, like AGU, the American Association of Petroleum Geologists, the Society of Economic Geologists. Many of them, they have a very wide international audience. We also have affiliated societies, such as the Geological, well, actually the Geological Society of London is a member of AGU, a full member, but we have affiliated societies who are Geological Society of Canada, various others that are based overseas, so we have connections to them. It depends how many members they have who are based in the US. If they have a certain percentage, then they can become a full member of AGU.
That's the reason why they're interested in what's happening in the Congress in the United States.
Yes. I mean, the policy side is focused on the US membership, very much so.
What is the most difficult thing in order to put together and to keep together all of these several tens of organizations?
It's trying to find the common denominator that everybody is concerned about, and then to give enough space for all the member societies to express their own opinions. So we have people with a full spectrum of opinions on things like hydraulic fracturing or climate change or whatever it may be. With 250,000 members, they don't agree on solutions to problems, but each society can take their own stance or they take none, and we only speak where there is agreement or where the science has a very definite opinion.
It is very difficult, I assume, to have agreement in a unanimous way.
Yes, but yes.
What is the common ground?
The common ground is the importance of the geosciences, and that the science we do is so important to so many aspects of life as we live it, whether it's energy, water, the environment, the climate, just understanding the earth we live on, the hazards, earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes in the last week. It's understanding how the earth works, which impacts everyone, whether you're a geoscientist or not, because the earth is our home, and if we understand how it works, we all should be better off and make better informed decisions. So the one common thread is the importance of the geosciences to people.
And is there something that we may do as members of the societies that could help you to do better your job?
I think the main thing is to live and explain the importance of what you do to your neighbors, to your friends, to your schools, to whoever, so that they understand that we need to understand how the earth works in order to maintain the lifestyle that we have, to maintain public safety, to provide the raw materials that we need for industry, for employment, for providing the goods that we and the rest of the world need.
So are you suggesting the scientists or the researchers in general to come out and come down off the ivory tower and talk with the common people and explain the basics, or to remain and do their job, and you and your different associations, they work out this other aspect?
Everyone... It's not a question of staying in the ivory. You can do your work in the ivory tower, but you live next door to somebody, you talk to your neighbors, you are a scientist to them. So it's not a question of educating people, it's raising awareness. They don't have to understand the fancy formulas that you're talking about. I have no clue how my car works, but I appreciate that somebody designed it and that there are mechanics who can fix it, and I know who to go to, and I value their stuff. Well, the same for the Earth. Everyone doesn't have to understand all the inorganic petrology that goes into interpreting the location of ore deposits, but they should recognize that what you do contributes the raw materials or whatever it is to support their lifestyle.
Thank you very much.
Don't educate, raise awareness.
We met in a rectangular room with a rectangular table with a lot of rectangular sheets of paper, and we were around 50 people. Half were students, generally postdocs or graduate students, and we represented 18 different states. So we were gonna meet representatives from 18 different states, but we didn't know much on what to do, what to say, and where to go. So the American Geosciences Institute organized this meeting and helped us a lot on how to do it. It was a must-do before going to the Congress. And this is Elizabeth Duffy, who's explaining us something about the legislative aspects. Okay.
Very happy to help. What can I do?
Okay. How do politicians see science?
I think it depends on the education that they've had and the issues that face their state or their district. By and large, every office that I've gone into understands the value of science and the need for continued federal funding of science. There seems to be a disagreement on some of the ways that federal dollars are invested in science. But by and large, everyone believes in the value of science and that the value of geoscience brings to the world.
Are they kind of bored by people talking about science?
Oh, no. Because there are so very few members of Congress that have a science background, either through an education or through a work program. There are so very few members of Congress that have a science background. They rely upon constituents and individuals that come in who are well-versed in science to educate their staff and themselves on the needs and the issues that science can help address.
So is it true that your role is to build a bridge in between the community of scientists and the community?
Personally, I myself see myself as sort of a translator. I take scientists who are so well versed and so knowledgeable about what they do, but not as knowledgeable how laws are made. And I listen to what they have to say, and I hear their concerns and I hear their issues. Then I take them to go meet with members of Congress and their staff, and I can translate that into policy language so that the members of Congress understand what it is we need the government to do. We need a bill that helps this program. We need more funding to accomplish this goal. Those are things that I can help translate the science into policy speak, and everybody gets what they want.
Aren't politicians asking somebody to help them translate what the scientists they say, or are more scientists that they try to find somebody to be translated into a jargon that the politicians they understand?
I think it could be a little bit of both. Most offices try to have someone in their staff that has science background or has science issues, especially if that member of Congress sits on a science-related committee. If that member of Congress sits on a science-related committee, they often try to get a fellow, someone who is a scientist, who has a PhD in a program, who will come be a member of their staff and sort of act as that science resource for the office. If the senator or the congresswoman doesn't have a science-related committee posting and doesn't have a staffer that has a science background, then they do rely upon their constituents and members of the scientific community to come in and explain the situation to them, explain the science, explain the value of the science, what it can do, what problem does it solve, why is it important?
And what do you actually do practically, pragmatically?
Well, I bring scientists in to Washington, D.C. to meet with their members of Congress. I make sure that the members of Congress realize that these people are resources for them, that they can be called upon to answer questions or anything in particular that they may need further information on, that these scientists are there as a resource for them. I provide them the access to the data that they need to produce the legislation that impacts the geoscience community. I raise the issues by going into members' offices and saying, hey, we really do need a bill that addresses this issue, or, case in point with the Earthquake Hazards Program, go into the offices and say, this is a fabulous program that's been around since the late 70s. It needs to be reauthorized. How can I help you achieve that goal? How can you help me achieve that goal? And find interested members of Congress who would be willing to take on the challenge of reauthorizing that bill.
How is it possible that the politicians, they listen to you? What do you do
I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing, especially earthquake science and things like that, I've been doing for a while. So I have a reputation amongst members of Congress and some staff, and it's walking in with a compelling story. Even if it's somebody with whom I've never met, or an office that we've not gone into before, it's having a compelling story.
What is the most important thing? The compelling story or the reputation?
Oh, I'd say a compelling story. I'd say a compelling story. I try to make sure that everyone with whom I meet remembers a little bit about why it is that I was there. A tidbit, a bit of information about their district, a bit of information about their state.
What is an example of compelling story that you have in your mind, something that you leave behind when you talk with them?
Oh, okay, there's an example. We were very interested in developing an earthquake early warning program for the United States. It's one of the countries that doesn't have a program. Japan has a very robust earthquake early warning. Other countries across the globe have an earthquake early warning system, and we as in America, we don't have one. So when we go in and we talk about how the earthquake early warning can provide a bit of time for people to protect themselves and stop possibly destructive things, we talk about someone going in for surgery and an earthquake early warning alarm going off in the operating suite in the hospital, allowing the surgeon to lift the scalpel before the shaking starts so that no artery is cut, or if you're getting LASIK eye surgery so that the laser doesn't inadvertently, end your sight. The ability to have 10-15 seconds of warning of ground shaking coming in your direction and allow a surgeon to lift his hands can save a life.
What is the most difficult thing in your daily work?
The pressing time. There is so much to get done and so little time to do it in. There are so few legislative days to meet with members and move a piece of legislation forward. Their calendars are full, and the larger, more pressing concerns are weighing on the minds of all elected members of Congress, and it's hard to get a bit of their time.
Is it true that the scientists, they don't really get this kind of super fast pace?
I think it depends on where the scientist is working, or it depends on what the scientist is working on. I think scientists as a whole are very deliberative, and sometimes that deliberation can take too much time, and we run out of legislative activity or legislative desire if they take too long to respond to an inquiry or too long to get the information to a member of Congress. So I think sometimes their deliberation can be difficult to overcome, but they're very facts-based, exact. They like to be accurate. They like to be complete in their analysis, and that takes time. And recognizing that, I tried my best to help them and say, well, if we just need this part today, and the rest of it we can work on, but we need this part today.
Elizabeth, you said something, I quote, until you inform your representatives, they don't know.
Well, I think the biggest value that people that participate in these events like GeoCVD, the biggest value is they are voters in that state or voters in that congressional district, and they come in and they tell their story. And until they go in and sit across from a staffer and convey that story and why it's important to them and what value it adds not only to the state but maybe to the nation, the staff doesn't know how passionate they are, how committed they are to their science. The staff doesn't know that personal connection and may not know that factual information either. So it's really valuable for participants in things like GeoCVD to come in and take the time to meet with their member of Congress. It carries a lot of weight that you as a constituent took time and spent your time and resources to come to Washington, D.C. to speak to them, shows them how committed you are to your process.
Do you want to suggest something to all these guys that are listening to you coming from the
Get
position you
involved.
have?
Get involved. It's not enough just to participate in the March for Science. It's being an advocate for your science is something you need to commit to on a monthly basis.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
In the meeting, I was also fascinated by the keynote presentation by Shane and Helen and Olivia Ambrogio. They told us how bad we are in communication. Geoscientists, researchers in general, very bad. So they told us how to tell a story, to be short, concise, and then building up a climax, and then arriving to the top, to the climax, and telling words that they had to awake your senses, like slap and bump, velvet and silk, and all of those words that they are moving all of your cells in your brain. And then at the top of the climax, you say what happened, and then you come down and you say why things they change. I would like also to put on a short clip about Carl Anderson. He is a lobbyist. So this was the very first time that I met a lobbyist. He's doing lobby for geoscience. This is what he is telling us. Hi, Carl.
Same reaction.
Excuse me to
Daniel.
disturb you. Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
Okay. You are a geoscientist lobbyist,
Yeah, I represent the Soil Science Society of America.
and what does it mean to be a lobbyist for geoscience?
Well, I'm here in DC and I represent soil scientists who obviously are part of the geoscience community and advocate for them here in DC with Congress and federal agencies. And a lot of that advocacy means supporting funding for soil science, specifically in the geosciences more broadly.
Like what other agencies they could be funded?
So we work a lot with the National Science Foundation, NSF. NOAA is another important funder for geosciences, the U.S. Geological Survey, and NASA. NASA has a big science portfolio as well.
How many lobbyists for geoscientists exist?
I would say there's a couple of dozen that are actively involved in advocating for the geosciences. And then there's, of course, an umbrella group, AGI, who many scientific societies are members of this larger umbrella group. But we all work together in a coalition. It's the Geoscience Working Group. And we all meet regularly to exchange information and talk about ways that we can work together in a coordinated way and have a unified message in support of geosciences.
So tell us again, what is exactly your role?
So the role is really to support the interests of our members, which are individual scientists across the country, to support their interests here in DC. That is specifically going to members of Congress and asking for funding, going with a very specific request and saying we need $7.5 billion for NSF, for instance. Making that request and working with Congress to try and get that funding.
Who is paying you?
So I work for the Soil Science Society of America.
Who's paying all the other lobbyists?
There's professional societies or associations.
So the lobbyists, they are staff members?
They are staff members, they're government relations professionals. They're staff members of the various scientific societies.
Can you tell us what the geoscientists they need to do better to communicate?
Well, it's really trying to make the story as simple as possible, but impactful, and really thinking a lot about, all politics are local, and really understanding how what you're doing, the science you're working on, how that impacts the local congressional district or the state, and being able to articulate those impacts, whether it's jobs or economic impact or solutions to problems, those kinds of impacts are really important.
You are talking now with the entire geoscience community. Do you want to ask them something that you need for your precious job?
We need stories. We need great personalized stories of how your science is impacting your local community and how you're benefiting your local community.
Thank you very much, Carl.
All right, thank you, Daniel.
Bye. It's 4:30 in the morning, and I am in the Baltimore airport. I arriving here with a bunch of students and families, while the people there stiffed up and wearing the suit. They were probably departing from the Washington, D.C. airport. So some data here about what was going on in Washington, D.C. Something about the current status of the fiscal year 2018 budget process. The President's budget request for the fiscal year 2018 released a skinny budget outlining his priorities in mid-March. So the request proposed a cut of the non-defense discretionary fundings, where geoscience and sciences in general are included, propose a cut of 54 billion in order to increase by those 54 billions the defense discretionary spending. The proposed decrease in the so-called non-defense discretionary funding would result in cuts of federal sciences agencies in between 3 and 30% below the fiscal year 2017. Funding levels for some key science agencies, they remain undecided, and so we act. So we divide ourselves, our 50 people, in roughly 8 to 10 groups, and we went to visit our representatives. I was in the team with people from Florida and Texas, and we went there advocating for science funding and explaining why it's crucial in order to send the message to the Congress that federal science agencies need robust funding to protect our health, national security, the economy, and also to build a highly skilled workforce. That was, in brief, the clear message. And just to give you some numbers, the fiscal year 2017, this is the budget for NSF, 7 billions. For NASA, 19 billions. For NOAA, 5 billions and a half. USGS, 1 billion. EPA, 8 billions. So these are rough numbers just to let you understand what we are talking about. And remember that the cuts, they were supposed to be 54 billions. Well, let's see what happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Houston. The local time is 7:27 a.m. We will be taxiing for the next few minutes, so please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened and all items stowed until the seatbelt sign is turned off. Please make sure you have all your personal belongings before you exit the aircraft, and be careful when opening overhead compartments.
All right, and now we come back to Houston. This is the present. Is 7:37, and is September 15th. This is KPFT Houston and the high definition channel HD3. You can call me at 713-526-8737. Write me at mini Geology, mini like MINI, like a little thing, mini Geology at gmail.com. Or you can tweet hashtag mini Geology, or Facebook at mini Geology. Think that there are some open questions in here. So do you think that there are better people than this that you listen right now? Let me know, because we need to think what are the better ways to organize ourselves, what are the better people. And so I think these organizations that they are collaborating under the umbrella of the AGI, and these people that they organize, they were great. The geoscience community is well organized, and I really thank them. But if you have better ideas and better people, call me. This is your megaphone. You can call at 713-526-8737. And what do you think are better ways to convince the great society of the importance of geology, of the importance of geoscience in general? How do we do it? I personally think that we have to improve our communication, including myself in here, but I still, at least I try. We need to reshape, refine, polish, and we may have some help, like it happened during the pre-meeting, to really understand the techniques of communication, but we have to do it better. And also the method should be different. Like Maeve Boland said, don't educate, raise awareness. So remember the analogy with the car. You don't need to know, you don't need to explain how the engine works. You need just to raise awareness of how dependent we are on that car, how important it is for us. So the same with our Earth and our planet and the sciences that study the Earth. And I personally think also that we have to engage our neighbors more, our kids' friends, our own family. If you only think how difficult it is to me to explain these things to my wife, and I always told you I'm a terrible, terrible husband. So that is why I think we need to do it better. And we need to participate also in the public debates, in the public arena, where the people they are listening to the topics that they belong to our discipline. We have to step up, come out, raise our voices, and talk. So you may be shy, you may think that you don't have the skills to do it, but if I can do it here, you can do it for sure. Maybe you're scared of the very first step, but then, like swimming, then it becomes a habit, and so you can do it. And commit also in grassroots movements, your local association, that they are well organized, they can help you how to communicate in better ways. And also commit with the well-established institutions and with the establishment, because that is really where they change things. And I can't believe it, that really it works. If you talk and you express your passion, you are listened. Now, it could be that for political reasons, our representatives, they don't really do what we ask, but they know what is important. So it's 7:44 in the morning in Houston, Texas, in the beautiful Montrose neighborhood, where we have this 102 years old bungalow, and we transform it into a radio that is going all around the planet, including the International Space Station. And I know our astronauts, they are listening to us, and I say hello. I don't know if to say good morning or good evening to them. I would like to thank Cindy and Jeremy and Mark and Lawrence that they gave me some advice before going to Washington, D.C. And I would like to thank again Maeve Boland, Elizabeth Duffy, and Carl Anderson for sharing their knowledge in the interviews that you listen. And I'm going to post in minigeology.com, which is a YouTube channel, and you're going to find them. And then I would like to thank also the presenters that they gave us some talks in the pre-meeting on September 12th, Casey White and Jim Barr and Timia Crisp and Shane Hanlon and Olivia Ambrogio. As well as I would like to thank my buddies that they visit with me, the congressmen and senators, John, Julia, Stacy. And then I'm going to thank the senators and congressmen and congresswomen that they met with us. They allow us to enter into their offices, not only them, but also their staff. And they gave us some time. The Senator John Cornyn from Texas, the Representative Darren Soto from Florida, Senator Bill Nelson from Florida, Representative Bill Flores from Texas, and Representative Louis Frankel from Florida. And I think this is all. And write to minigeology@gmail.com.